Welcome to Researching in Powys. Our first speaker today is Elsa Churchill, who is the genealogist at the Society of Genealogists.
Well, thank you everyone for coming. I'd very much like to welcome you to this collaboration between the Society of Genealogists, Powys Archives and Powys Family History Society in order to learn about family history resources for Powys, and also for the contribution that's being made from the Vision of Britain Through Time, Historic Town Trusts and Victoria County Histories, all of which we hope can help you with your research in this in Powys. I should say a little bit about the Society of Genealogists. We're the oldest and largest genealogical member society in the UK, seeking to create a wonderful working research hub concentrating on collecting resources, primarily relating to, obviously textbooks and guides and journals and periodicals relating to the subject. We are the genealogical, library of the country. We focus on things like what did your ancestors do in their lives, so professional records, occupational records, collecting information about their education, apprenticeships, military service, tax records, criminal records, poor records, newspapers, directories, ecclesiastical records, church court records, tombstones, etc., etc., etc. We very much encourage people to write up and research their families, and we do collect what's been done before and focus our attention on that. So with lots of compiled family histories and pedigrees and genealogical research notes and papers, we are a place to deposit your research if you want it to be preserved, and also to collect resources primarily, and this is where we're focusing, of course, in this session, on the resources from where your ancestors lived. That's for the UK as a whole, and of course for overseas resources, particularly relating to the sort of former colonies where the British migrated to. And that will include indexes, finding aids, transcripts of vital records of birth, marriage and death, church baptisms, marriage, burial, censuses, directories, and all the other sort of bread and butter sources that you would expect a good genealogical research hub to contain. I think I've only got about 25 minutes to cover everything about the Society, and of course we're taking questions about our holdings at the end. I will have to go rather quickly, I hope, to pack it all in. But basically our research hub at Wharf Road is comprised of the library, which has books, electronic and micromedia, on and off the shelves. And of course, to understand what we have, you would need to use our library catalogue, which we call SOGCAT. And as we're a Family Search affiliate library, using that Family Search catalogue can also indicate what material can be viewed at the Society as well. In addition to having grown from being a library from when we were founded in 1911, we have acquired sort of archives, whether that's copies of original records, essentially that have no other home, but primarily research papers and notes, special collections, manuscript pedigrees, and again, that's also very much in our off-site storage. We have the archive collections, finding aids on the catalogue along with the library catalogue, and gradually parts of the library are becoming digitally available to our members through SOG Explore. That will include some indexed original records that we house, indexes and databases that we have created, indexing other records, and of course digital books from the library. Not everything in the library is ours to publish online, of course, and of course the contents of SOG Explore will be growing, and I'll explain that as we go. So pretty much I'd recommend looking at the website, particularly the library pages, or as we call it, the research hub pages on the website sog.org.uk, where you'll find information on accessing our collections and visiting the library if needed. It's not necessary to pre-book your visit, but if you are travelling a long distance and would like to reserve a library computer, it's a good idea to pre-book. For information on how to book and other information, do see the Visit Us section of that page. And I feel we do have to point out that not all of our holdings are kept on site. So if you do need to order maybe a collection that you've discovered from the archive finding aids, or items in the catalogue which are described as off-site, then we will have to order those in from off-site storage. So please hopefully with at least a week's notice. It's possible to do it with less, but a week guarantees that we can get the item in from the offsite store. And there's a collection order form within the Visit Us pages, with where you can fill in the details: author, title, shelf mark, accession number, and offsite storage number, etc., which you'll find from the library catalogue. And the library pages do link to the various ways that you can identify things that we have. I'm afraid there is no one catalogue that lists everything yet. So I say there's a link to our library catalogue, the archive finding aids, the collection guides, and the online resources, which are exclusive for our members. We have also, hoping to make it slightly easier, uploaded what we call the SOG Researcher Handbook, which gives you sort of a general guide to what we have, how you find it, and generally how we work. If you can't come personally to visit the Society's premises in Wharf Road, then the library pages do have information about our limited search copy service, that we can do to perhaps copy or items from the collections for you. And there's guidance on employing a professional researcher who could come to do research on your behalf, perhaps. With so much information not on the open shelves, it's vital to use the catalogues to identify what you want. And of course, there are shortcuts to the catalogue on the Search Our Collections, which will take you to the library catalogue, and you can do basic searches there, perhaps using the more sophisticated, advanced and simple keyword searches from the catalogue from the links in the main library pages. This sort of quick link on the Search Our Collections link to the catalogue gives you the browse by sort of what librarians call sort of subjects search, and it's a good way to start is perhaps to put in the name of a place where your ancestors came from, or maybe a county, to see what resources we might hold. Of course, most genealogists knows that the sources that are most associated with localities and places are exactly what we're looking for in our genealogical research. Wikipedia tells me that Powys covers the historic counties of Montgomeryshire and Radnorshire, most of Brecknockshire and part of historic Denbighshire, with an area of around 2,000 square miles, and it's now one of the largest administrative areas in Wales by land, but I think probably more sparsely populated. It's bounded to the north by Gwynedd, Denbighshire and Wrexham County Borough, to the west by Ceredigion and Carmarthenshire. I think I ought to put a general blanket in for any apologies of me mangling Welsh place names as this talk goes on. And bounded to the east by Shropshire and Herefordshire, and to the south by Rhondda, Cynon Taf, Merthyr Tydfil, Caerphilly County Council, Blaenau Gwent, Monmouthshire and Neath, Port Talbot, etc. But the sort of the SOG in our sort of shelving, maintenance, and sort of listings of the things we do actually groups everything according to the pre-1974 county boundary changes. So we will retain the pre-1974 county and parish names in the catalogues and finding aids, those places as they largely were when our ancestors lived there. And by places, it's usually the parishes where your ancestors lived. So we tend to use the Institute of Heraldic and Genealogical Studies parish maps as published in the Phillimore Atlas as our guides. But sadly, their map for Mid Wales isn't quite so clear cut for our purposes. And I'm sure we're going to see various maps that will help sort of centre our research as this whole session this afternoon goes on. So a typical county holding within the Society of Genealogists collections will include published material, transcripts and index of records, as well as surrogate copies of original records on microfiche and microfilm. For Wales, we have what we call the general items covering the whole of the country, or general items covering a county. So there might well be, for example, Peter Bartram's Welsh genealogies as published works, or county histories, pedigrees and genealogies, records for a tax that cover a whole county, such as a half tax, will indexes, finding aids and records. After general, for sort of county-wide, we tend to go for specific places. So these are parish histories, parish chest records, rate books, local quarter sessions, borough records, anything that can be sort of filtered down to a particular place other than a a register or monumental inscription. We do have a significant number of church records and registers, copies and transcripts and index and finding aids, all of those which will come under the sort of shelf mark WSR, and there are about 250 items relating to the 3 counties of our interest listed in SOGCAT. That will include Church of Wales, denominations, christenings, marriages and burials, nonconformists and other denominations. There's a significant number of transcripts of monumental inscriptions from churchyards and cemeteries, usually with a shelf mark WSMI, and there's about 388 items of those, including the many of those published that we've bought from Powys and Montgomery Family History Societies. All of these sort of bound parish registers and monumental inscriptions, which had a shelf mark WS, which were formerly on the Welsh shelves in the library, have actually now been scanned and created as searchable PDFs. And so if you do come to order one of those, we'll actually make the scanned version of that available in the library rather than getting the book out. And that means that we've managed to significantly reduce the bookshelf space in our new library. I think we've overall, by digitization and having things stored off site, we've gone down from 6,000 linear feet to about 1,500 linear feet on open access. We've also got a significant number of directories, poll books, and of course the local Family History Society and Record Society periodicals. So, for example, if you do search the library catalogue by place, such as for Llandrino or for Newtown in Montgomeryshire, you will see that for Montgomeryshire, it will say that there are 25 distinct items in Newtown. And this will include, as I said, local records and histories, maps, church registers, copies of original registers, transcripts and index, various nonconformist chapels. And of course, we'll have the publications of the Powys Family History Society and the Montgomery Genealogical Society monumental inscriptions, and it's possible that we'll have the relevant copies of the Quaker Digests covering the appropriate areas, and directories and maybe transcripts of wills, and of course church court wills, which will cover that area. And again, you can see here, I've made from the catalogue, I've been able to list all the registers for Radnorshire, which might include bound transcripts, many published by local record societies, microfilm or microfiche of the original registers that we obtained from purchasing them from local record offices or the National Library of Wales. And again, we've also bought in from the National Archives nonconformist records held at Kew. All of our registers are probably held off-site, whether they're in book form or on microfilm or other media. And as I say, because we've been scanning and creating PDFs of the bound registers, if you wanted a copy of the transcripts of the Abercow registers, which formerly had a shelf mark of WSR 83, we would let you know that we'd set up a scanned version of the book to view on the PCs in our library. We're hoping that those in the future may be available for members to view on SOG Explore in the future, but at the moment we're still in the sort of scanning and sorting that out process. And again, the catalogue lists all the monumental inscriptions. Here I've shown the kind of search you can do for listing all the MIs in Brecknockshire, and again, which might be the bound transcripts published by many local record societies. And these two are being scanned. So if you do see, perhaps if you wanted to see the transcripts of the Abergwesin Congregational Chapel monumental inscriptions or the Altmar MIs, both of which happen to be typed up in one volume in WSM31. If you order that through ordering in the box number from the catalogue, we'll actually say, oh no, we've got a scanned version of that, which will probably be easier for you to use. But we'll let you know that when you order the item that you're interested in. And in addition to the library access to the major genealogy websites, Ancestry, Find My Past, The Genealogist and My Heritage, etc., the Society of Genealogists is, of course, a Family Search Partner affiliate library. That means records which have been scanned and digitised by Family Search and which are listed in the Family Search catalogue can usually be viewed at the Society. And increasingly, Family Search full text is making previously unindexed or minimally indexed items more accessible within the catalogue's icons viewable at the library, such as monumental inscriptions, registers, marriage bonds and licenses relevant for Gladestry and Radnorshire, for an example. So the two catalogues are really quite useful to see, what can I use to view at the Society of Genealogists. In addition to parish registers and monumental inscriptions, as I said, we collect what we call local items, comprising sources for a county in Wales or for a place within a county, such as local histories, local war biographies, parish chest records, other than registers, settlement certificates, or indexed and transcribed vaccination registers. But very often these projects are undertaken by our own members who've done indexing projects for us, or we have purchased in publications over the years. As I said, there may be published local histories, church notes, town guides, and miscellaneous records such as the Montgomery Family History Society transcriptions of the Paddon Friendly Society records. So again, searching by place will bring up a wide variety of things, which are all collected in one place at the SOG in London. I'd suggest obviously broadening out a search for the whole county, and I would encourage you to try browsing through the catalogue. And what I've done is given you sort of a list of all the main subject headings for the 3 counties. You will get a copy of these, the PDF of these slides that you can use as a handout, and there's all the examples of the subject headings you can have for example, for the county of Brecknockshire. That's obviously with general items covering the county. That could include compiled family histories or general histories or will indexes for the whole county. A sort of A to Z listing of general items, from biographies through to sort of World War I resources. And again, the similar listings that you can search in the catalogue for Montgomeryshire and for Radnorshire. So, for example, the bibliography by George Marshall called The Genealogist's Guide tells us that there's a published narrative family history relating to the Harvard family in Theophilus Jones' History of the County of Brecknock, Volume 1. We have a copy of that, of course, in the library under Wales Brecknockshire General History. And again, from there, you can go from the guide, the genealogist's guide, saying there's a published pedigree, even though we haven't indexed all the names in the pedigrees in this work in our library catalogue, because we've got a copy. You will find you to a nice published family history within there. And again, you'd expect us to have all the compiled family histories for the county. Is often the work of older antiquarian researchers who are working in the county. So again, Marshall's genealogist's guide tells us information on the name Winter in the same work by Theophilus Jones for Brecknockshire. And again, for the family of Eighton, there's a published family history in Lloyd's History of the Princes of the Lords Marcher and the Ancient Nobility family of Powys Fadog and the Ancient Lords of Aristyle, Sedwin and Merioneth. Again, those older antiquarian works you'd expect at an august society like the Society of Genealogists to have those as well. But of course, we encourage everyone to write up their family history. And if you search the library catalogue by surname for compiled single family histories, which have been deposited with us, you'll find several families of who are not princes of Wales have compiled their family history, such as the family history of Thomas Jones, the artist of Pennsrigg in Radnorshire. Got a couple of copies of that in the library, and we encourage everyone to, if they're already writing up a family history, to deposit one with the society. In fact, we have well over 9,000 of those held within the collections, and these are all being currently scanned and listed in the catalogue. And if you find a family history that you're interested in, we can make the scanned copy available to use on the computers at the library. Moving on to sort of general things you'd expect us to do. So will indexes and finding aids, of course, it's something the Society always concentrates on. The records of the church courts governing wills before 1858 are largely at the National Library of Wales, with the counties of Radnorshire and Brecknockshire mainly in the consistory of St David's and the Archdeaconry courts of Brecon, with Montgomeryshire mostly in the diocese of St Asaph. The Society of Genealogists will, of course, hold all the published indexes to the various courts, along with access to Find My Past, which has online indexes and abstracts of the records, and as a Family Search affiliate library, has access to the library not only to the calendars and index, but images of the probate documents themselves. And in addition to that, our collections may well include abstracts or transcriptions of wills, including, for example, Mariona Wilkinson's transcriptions of wills from the Diocese of St David's, published by the Powys Family History Society, and those compiled by SOG fellow Ernest John Leslie Cole relating to Radnorshire. John Cole was a leading authority in recent years on the families of Central Wales and the Marches. He had been a member of the Society for some time and a fellow since 1973. He was also a fellow of the Society of Antiquaries and vice president of the Radnorshire Society, and his published works covered many historical and genealogical topics, but his early series of Radnorshire wills and his notes on early sheriffs, which were published in the Records Society, were put together as a kind of Festschrift edited by Michael Faraday shortly after his death, and again it contains some interesting abstracts and transcripts of the wills themselves. And Rosemary Williams has done something similar for Montgomery. Again, interesting items within the collection. Our counties are well served by very active and flourishing local record and family history societies, so our periodicals collections will, of course, include local family history society journals, particularly the Powys Chronicle, published by the Powys Family History Society, and the Record, which is the journal of the Montgomery Genealogical Society. We also have local history society publications, such as the Montgomeryshire Collections, the Journal of the Powys Land Club, from 1875 to 1975, with a few gaps and indexes to those, the Transactions of the Radnorshire Society, the Journal of the Brecknock Society. Forgive me for not attempting the Welsh pronunciation there. Interestingly, our librarian has started to catalogue, particularly the Family History Society journals, in more depth within our catalogue, down to down to article level. We don't necessarily catalogue every name in every book or every article in a journal, but certainly the general notes giving you an indication of what articles are in the journals are actually quite interesting, and say that's something that you can look in our library catalogue to look for. So those for the Montgomery Genealogical Society or the Powys Family History Society, recent articles are being added to the catalogue. Moving online, Welsh collections or data sets online for our members on SOG Explore are actually quite few of the 1,400 data sets that we do have online. I'm afraid we've only got about 50 Welsh collections digitized online, but that might be indexes to digital copies of books, indexes to records, and even fewer, I'm afraid, in fact, almost nothing specifically online for mid Wales. But that's our to our detriment. I'm sure we'll have more as SOG Explore. Occasionally, you will find listed in the library catalogue indication that a particular book has been scanned and digitized for our members to view on SOG on Explore, and so I'm afraid, for example, while we have scanned and digitized some of our directories and poll books for South Wales and Monmouthshire, they may not be particularly of interest for our county's research today. But just to say what you would look out as our digitisation progresses, when it says SOG data online, it'll tell you to go. You can look for that item on SOG Explore if you're a member. So moving away from the books and digital items to our manuscript archives, and just to finish up now, we have about 150 boxes of topographical place papers, and a few of those have been microfiche because that was whizzy technology towards the end of the 20th century. Our topographical collection means sort of miscellanea pertaining to or dealing with a place rather than a family name or surname, coming from topography, which the Oxford English Dictionary defines as a science or describing of a particular place, city, town, manor, parish, or tract of land. So these miscellaneous documents, which have come to the library from all sorts of ways, are listed as new accessions in the Genealogist magazine, and they may have come to us from donation or clearances for solicitors' deed boxes via the British Record Association, which acts as a clearinghouse for such dispersal, or they may have come as sort of documents within family papers. Hitherto, we only had a paper list listing the contents of the Topographical Archive collection, pretty much county by county, or there is a whole one for Wales. You can find a link to a scanned copy of these paper lists. PDFs of those are available from the archive finding aids from the library pages of the website. And these scanned paper lists are becoming the basis of entries in our new online archive catalogue that we're working on at the present, which we hope will be much more detailed listing of our collections than these just paper lists. But looking at the topographical collection for Wales, the topographical book list for Wales is arranged by the old counties, and while the topographical boxes have been weeded over the years and sometimes original documents have been passed on to other archives to look after them, there are still original documents which have been passed to the Society, which can be found in the boxes, and it's an absolute lucky dip miscellany. So, for example, for Brecknockshire, there is a set of abstracts of estate records for the Manor of Brecon, a copy of an oath signed by David Davies of Brecon in 1701, or an indenture relating to property in Battle in 1711. As I say, it's very much a miscellany and a lucky dip, but it's something I think people are surprised that you might find even at the Society of Genealogists. The scanned archive finding aids also link to an Excel spreadsheet inventory of about 9,000 what we call the manuscript roll pedigrees deposited. We're here at the Society pretty much since we were founded, and these 9,000 roll pedigrees comprise about 20,000 sheets. There is a project going on from the inventory to scan them, digitize them, index them into GEDCOM files and upload them onto SOG Explore. I'm afraid of the 9,000 that have been inventoried and scanned, there's only 250 up on SOG Explore at the moment, but there are more definitely coming. The inventory tells me that we've got a nice 3-page pedigree relating to the Yehu family of Montgomeryshire, but I'm afraid that's not uploaded onto SOG Explore yet. But moving on to SOG Explore for our members, there is information on the Yehu family in Montgomeryshire within the digitised collection we hold for customs and excise personnel registers relating to investors in the Great Western Railway, shown in the Great Western Railway probate registers books, and there are some apprentices of that name listed as their apprenticeships were taxed between 1710 and 1810 in our collection of what we call the Apprentices of Great Britain. So I hope that's a whistle-stop tour of the things within the library, the archives. I think people might be surprised at just how much Welsh material has been collected in at the Society in London. And I hope you'll have an opportunity, if you can, to come to us in Wharf Road in person.
We're going to now have Charlotte McCarthy, who is the Archives Manager at Powys Archives. Over to you, Charlotte.
Okay, good afternoon, everybody. So I'm the Archives Manager at Powys Archives, based in Llandrindod in Radnorshire. I've been in post now for 2.5 years. It's been a bit of a steep learning curve because previous to this, I've always worked at business or charity archives. So actually working in local government has been interesting, but I'm really enjoying it. So this month we are celebrating 50 years since the first accessions were deposited in readiness for the start of the archive. Though having said that, Powys didn't actually employ its first archivist until 1984, and the first archive building wasn't opened in Llandrindod until 1996. So today we're going to look at the archive collections that we hold here in Powys Archives that can help researchers to undertake their family history, house history, or a history of their town or community. So a little bit about Powys. So the map above shows its geographical layout within Wales. So you can see it's right smack bang in the centre. And the county was formed in 1974 by the amalgamation of 3 counties, Montgomeryshire in the north, Radnorshire in the middle, and Breconshire in the south. Sometimes referred to as Mid Wales, Powys is the biggest county in Wales, but it is the most scarcely populated. A survey in 2022 recorded that only 133,891 people lived within the county boundaries, And this was broken down by 64,408 in Montgomeryshire, 29,468 in Radnorshire, and 40,015 in Brecconshire. Currently, there are more Welsh speakers in Montgomeryshire than any of the other three counties, and I believe that within Powys, about 6% of the people living here actually speak Welsh. I'm learning, so wish me luck. So Powys is famous for many things, and these include things like the Brecon Beacons, the Ellen Valley, which supplies drinking water to Birmingham, the Royal Welsh Agricultural Show, the book capital of the UK, Hay-on-Wye, and Offa's Dyke, to name a few. So now to the archives. So Powys Archives, as I said, is based in Llandrindod-Wells in Radnorshire, right in the centre of the county. We're a very small team here at the archives. There is only 4 of us that actually work within this building. There's myself, the archives manager. We have 2 records officers and a part-time community engagement officer that works 18 hours a week. The building that we're currently in was purpose-built and opened in 2017. As well as Powys, looking after Powys' historical archives, we also manage the council's modern record service, and we also manage patient files for Powys Teaching Health Board. The archives are part of Powys County Council's Cultural Services Department, which is known by the collective term Story Powys, and this incorporates 14 public libraries, 4 museums, and ourselves. Our earliest document dates from 1318 and relates to land in Old Radnor in Radnorshire. And this document was actually acquired at auction thanks to monies collected together by the Radnorshire Society and also the V&A. Powys Archives are a designated place of deposit by the National Archives. This means that we have a commitment to cure, preserve and make available public records, including records of courts, coroners and hospitals. So cultural services have one shared website. This is it, Story Powys. Here customers can access information about Powys' libraries, museums and archives. You can also use our part of the site to access more information on our services, such as our opening times, research services, view our catalogues online, have a look at our collection catalogues, and also browse any digital resources that we have. So this is our archive catalogue. People might find it quite familiar because it's CALM system, which is used by quite a lot of local record officers across the country. And this can actually be accessed from the main page of the Story Powys by clicking on the Archives Catalogue link as shown in the picture. A few tips that I would say if anyone was going to use our catalogue is basically to avoid the title field and put any subject terms actually into any text box. If a search relates to a particular country, you can specify this by putting a /M for, say, Montgomeryshire, or /R for Radnorshire, or a /B for Brecconshire. But I advise maybe not to use this field to keep the search box as open as possible, which means that you'll get more results back. You can always also insert a date if you'd like, but you can order by date when the information has come up in your search at a later stage. So I just say just use any top text box to begin with. But if you have any any problems or anything, please feel free to get in touch with us and we'll just get back to you as soon as possible. So we also have another system that's managed by ourselves in archives, and this is called Cliniau Story Powys. And once again, it's accessible from the main page of the Story Powys website. You just have to click on where it says Heritage Collections. And this site is actually managed by us here at Archives, but it is actually a joint project between ourselves, Elanfa Museum in Welshpool, Llanidloes Museum, Radnorshire Museum in Llandrindod-Wells, and a Gaia Museum in Brecon, and also Powys' libraries and local studies collections. The website showcases objects, images, and archive materials from across the whole of the county, which people might not have seen before. And images on this website can also be downloaded for personal use or dedicated to a loved one. We have a few people. There was, I think, a picture of a bench, and they said, "Oh, this I remember sitting on this bench," and they dedicated it to somebody in their family. But that capability of that site is not properly explored yet. So watch this space. New things are being added all the time. So the Story Powys website also includes a few digital online resources which were put together a couple of years ago. And these include Victorian Powys. It was aimed mainly at primary schools, and this was actually completed in March 2002. We also have Powys A Day in the Life, which is an innovative digital history project exploring life in Powys in 1891 and comparing it to the same time in 2002. And the final project is Six Powys Communities Online. And this project ran between 1998 and 1999 and featured 6 communities across Powys, including Machynlleth, Llanidloes, Rhaeadr, Prestine, Hay-on-Wye and Ystrad Laws. So many people that contact Powys Archive might not actually need to visit us at all because all the information that they're actually looking for is available online. So I've included a few of the most handy websites here on this slide, and you'll be given a handout, I think, probably tomorrow, which you can easily use these to look up these sources online if you've not used them before. So the first one is Discovery from the National Archives. So I use this as a professional archivist all the time to actually look for collections because it will tell you where they're actually held, and then you can get in touch with the relevant archive yourselves. There's Coughlane, which includes information on archaeological sites and buildings of Wales. The National Library of Wales is a fantastic resource. It offers Welsh newspapers online up until 1919, Welsh tithe maps between 1838 and 1850, and also journals between 1735 and 2007. We hold copies of the tithe maps here, but they're actually photocopies of the ones held in the National Library of Wales collection. So I think if people want to look at them, you could definitely look at them at home. But if you have any problems, please feel free to visit, and we can help you to look at things in more details here in the archive. Another source is the National Library of Wales. They have digitised all their Ordnance Survey maps, and these are available to consult for free on their website. And then another really useful one is the Historical Directories, which is available from the University of Leicester. So if you're looking for a particular business, say, and you want to look at a Kelly's directory, they'll have digitised it and it'll be available online. So how can we help you? So we can help you with any of these topics listed here. We also have access to Find My Past and Ancestry within the office. And we recommend that if anybody is starting off doing their family history, to search both Ancestry and Find My Past, because they both contain quite slightly different sources. So, for example, Ancestry came and recently ran a project at the archives where they were scanning our parish registers. And so we're hoping that these will go online in the next couple of months, and they'll be colour and they'll be a lot easier to read. But until they do go online, the only source of some of these registers is Find My Past. So it's always better to search across the two, and don't think that everything is just on one, which it is not. So now we'll move on and we'll look at some specific sources which can help with archival research. So in 2005, the Church in Wales designated Powys Archives as the place of deposit for parish registers and parochial records. Parochial records include church wardens' accounts, vestry minutes, and records of settlement, as well as a wide variety of other sorts of records. Like many other local government record offices, we have a large collection of parish registers for Powys's 3 former counties, Montgomeryshire, Radnorshire and Breconshire. These are an invaluable source of information for family history research, recording births, marriages, and deaths. While we do hold some non-conformist registers, most of these are actually held by the National Library of Wales. So if you've done all your due diligence and you just cannot find, say, a marriage in any of the Church of Wales registers, there is a possibility, especially within family history in Wales, that your family member could have been nonconformist. So it's always worth going to the National Library of Wales to check whether they have resources. So Ancestry, as I said, visited us between the 28th of February and the 24th of August 2023 as part of their Cross Wales scanning project. And then they returned again between the 11th of September and the 11th of October 2023 to scan additional volumes that we had acquired from Gwynedd Archives. And this was due to an ecclesiastical boundary change. And so now we also hold parish registers from Cymaeus, Darwin, Clanrin, Machynlleth, Pennygoes, Dillif and Llanbrynmawr. Currently we hold 1,840 parish registers in our collection, and the earliest register dates from 1578 and relates to Aberhassath in Montgomeryshire. My colleagues at the Powys Registry Office have just asked me to flag that if anybody wants any birth, marriages or death certificates, that they can contact them on their email registrars@powys.gov.uk. Strangely enough, we also hold motor taxation registrations pre-1974. So we hold books for all three counties, though some of the records are in better condition than others. The ones that are in the best condition are those relating to Radnorshire. We primarily use these to date or enable customers to re-register vehicles. The earliest record dates from 1903 and records the granting of a driving licence to a lady driver in Radnorshire, followed quickly by her husband. He was number 2. Many counties actually destroyed their records before handing them over to the DVLA. So these are a popular series of records, especially with farmers wanting to re-register old tractors. We also hold a large collection of schools and education records. The most popular of these are the school logbooks, admissions registers, and punishment books. Logbooks are the primary source for the history of a school, but they can vary in content, and the level of detail is often dependent on the head teacher making the entries. However, the type of information they give can include details of the school's academic progress, inspections and teaching methods or materials used. They also contain names of staff and details about the local community, wartime or significant national events. Since government grants depended on pupil attendance, logbooks often record the effects of bad weather, employment of children or epidemic diseases. We also hold admissions registers. These record lists of pupils admitted to a school and were usually kept from the 1870s. They can include a child's name, dates of birth and admission, plus parents' or guardians' names. Given the sometimes sensitive nature of these records, they are closed to the public for 100 years. So currently, only registers up to 1925 are open to the public. And finally, punishment books. It was required that a separate book should be kept for each school detailing all corporal punishments. From 1900, school inspectors would examine the school punishment books during their visit. These books usually record the pupil's name, date of punishment, nature of the offence, and type of punishment given. Similarly to admissions registers, these are actually closed for a 100 years period. So, as might be expected, we also hold numerous different types of maps and plans. The main types to be found within our collection are Ordnance Survey maps, which were the first comprehensive mapping project undertaken in Britain. The resulting printed maps were published by the Crown and are in 4 main groups: the 1 inch, the 6 inch, the town scales, and the 1 to 2500 maps. The earliest 1 inch map was published in 1801, and the 6-inch series appeared through the mid-19th century. These are also, as I've mentioned before, available to look at and to refer to on the National Library of Scotland website. We also hold tithe maps. These show the plots of land which were liable to pay tithe to ecclesiastical parishes. After the 1836 Tithe Act, tithes were commuted by the government into a simple tithe rent charge, tithe apportionments, which list landowners, tenants, properties, acreage, and the amount of tithe payable, with accompanying maps were created for 75% of all the parishes in England and Wales. And as I've said previously, these are also available to view on the National Library of Wales website. We also hold enclosure awards, and these were produced in association with, we also hold enclosure maps, and these were produced in association with enclosure awards, by which open fields, wastes, or commons were converted to individual private plots of land. Before 1845, enclosure was managed at a local level. After this time, it was overseen by a central government department. Enclosure maps usually show the different areas of land owned or leased by individuals after an enclosure award was made. We also hold another fantastic source of reference materials, and these are local papers which relate to Powys, but also Montgomeryshire, Radnorshire, and Breconshire. And we have copies of the papers listed on the slide. Some of these are on microfilm, and some of them we actually have as physical copies. But if anybody is wanting to look at newspapers, I'd advise just drop us an email beforehand. We can have a look and we can tell you whether it's on microfilm or whether we've got a physical copy, or if we don't actually have it at all. So public records. So public records held by the archives relate to the County Court and Shrievalty, hospitals and health authorities, inland revenue, mines and quarries, the National Coal Board, petty sessions, quarter sessions, and coroner's records. Of these record types, our most widely accessed collection is the quarter sessions records. Quarter sessions were meetings of the Justice of the Peace for the county held quarterly 4 times a year at Epiphany, Easter, Midsummer and Michaelmas. The records for Breconshire date from 1690, for Montgomeryshire from 1719 and Radnorshire from 1753. The records contain information on judicial cases, local government administration, jails and bridges, the appointment of government officials, and even coroner's reports. So official records held by the archives include those relate to boroughs, the Brecon Beacons National Park, burial authorities, charity commission, civil parish and township, constabulary, county councils, district councils, school boards and schools, highway boards and highway trusts, lieutenancy and militia, local boards of health, poor law records, the Board of Guardians, and urban and rural district councils. So I thought I'd include a picture here of some of our beautiful medieval borough charters which relate to Montgomeryshire. The top one is Charles II, which dates from 1670. The middle one, Elizabeth I. I think if she'd seen this picture, she'd be horrified. She's got the most fattest legs you've ever seen in your life. And this one dates from 1561. And the bottom charter is the charter granted by Henry VII in 1486. We also hold deposited and miscellaneous collections, including family, estate and legal papers, business records, societies and organisations, minor deposits and miscellaneous deposits. And we've got a few examples of some of these collections here. Recently, Radnorshire Museum has transferred a large photograph and postcard collection to us. Among these is the Rusham Roberts collection. The family ran a photographic studio in Clandrindod Wells for more than 70 years, and the collection contains over 1,000 glass negatives. We have got some volunteers currently working on this project to help us sort, repackage, and catalogue this collection. I remember there was a lady saying that her family was from Radnorshire, so if they possibly got married in Clandrin-Dodwells, we possibly could have some photos of their marriage within the collection. We also have a large local studies collections of reference books relating to Powys, Montgomeryshire, Breconshire and Radnorshire, as well as some more generic Welsh history sources. We also have local journals, pamphlets and trade directories. The Powys Library Catalogue, which is called Spidus, can be accessed from the Story Powys web page, and you can use this to search for local studies books that are held within the search room. Though you can't borrow them, you're welcome to come down to the archive and read one of them, perhaps by sitting in our comfy book nook chair, but maybe that actually is a bad idea because once you've sat down, you can't escape because it just really hugs the body. So if you can't visit us in person, we run a charge for research, copying and digitization service. Before visiting, I would always advise everybody to email us ahead of time just to ensure that we have something relevant within our collections, because otherwise it could be a bit of a wasted trip. We have had a few people come in the past and it turns out that we don't actually have anything kind of physical for them to actually look at, and so it's been a bit of a wasted trip. So whatever you do, please feel free to email us before you come. So that's the end of my talk. I hope that it's been helpful. Just to say, if anybody would like to come for a tour of the archive, we're taking part in Cadw Open Doors, which is running in September and will be open on Saturday the 13th of September between 10 and 1. Free tour followed by refreshments and a goodie bag. So if you are interested, please drop us an email or give us a call. Thank you.
And our next speaker is Phil Bufton, who is chair of the Powys Family History Society. Thanks, Phil.
Good afternoon. As you say, my name is Phil Bufton, and I'm chairman of the Powys FHS, and I have been chairman since 2012, carrying on, hopefully. So just a little detail about myself, first of all. I've been researching in Powys, and in particular in Radnorshire, since 1992. I've researched back to approximately 1700. My family didn't move very far. They stayed in Lambishter for about 300 years, so I'm not really not one for traveling about, my family, I think. Eventually, my family started moving for the better farmland because they were all agricultural or farmers. And then they moved across into Herefordshire, where I am now. I actually live in Hereford. Included in my biography, I said that I'd done 36 years as a civil servant with the MOD. That is sort of where my interest in military memorials has come from. And I'm a volunteer also in my spare time with the Commonwealth War Graves Commission, where I look after 70 memorials to fallen soldiers and sailors. And obviously that part of that is doing research into them and putting it onto their website, and so that people that are connected to them come back to it. Okay, as I said, this is my second stint as chairman, but enough about me. Okay, so this is the this talk comes from basics from a talk I have been giving to the groups of the Powys FHS to bring them into the digital age, as the title suggests. This is a website, and I should know where that is, but I think it's Llanfihangel and Nantmelyn, and as you'll see, all the topics from the website. Okay, so there are three individual societies which is what we now call Powys. There's the Breconshire Local and Family History Society, the Montgomeryshire Genealogical Society, and the Powys Family History Society. I'm just going to talk about the Powys Family History Society, obviously. So it was formed in 1980, along with a lot of the societies around this area. And I think it was sort of, especially like Herefordshire and Gloucestershire, where Colin Chapman came round and organised meetings. The Powys wasn't like that. It was organised by a local member who eventually became our president, Dilys Glover, and she lived in Montgomeryshire, and she decided we would have a meeting. And if Dilys said we were having a meeting, we were having a meeting. So she organised that before I joined. She organised the first meeting in Montgomeryshire, and it covers the whole of Powys. So as you can see from the map on screen there, Powys does cover quite a large area. But we've got a relatively small membership. But as I say, there are a lot more sheep than people. So that has limitations on what we can actually do. But we're still going. So we're also a member of the Association of Family Societies of Wales, which is sort of a Welsh version of the Federation. So there are 3 groups in our society: the Breconshire, Montgomery, and the Radnor. At this time in 1980, there was no internet, so it was just local members. It was just local groups, small people who already knew each other and already knew about their families. So all the information was handwritten. There were no computers yet. Margaret Thatcher was Prime Minister. Remember that? Well, petrol was £1.28 a gallon, or 28 pence a litre. Well, perhaps you can hope it'll ever get back to that. Okay, so this is the 3 maps of the 3 counties, and as you can see, there are quite a lot of parishes. And obviously that goes back to what Charlotte was saying about how many parish registers there are. And it also means that the records are spread about a little bit. So obviously we've got the Powys archives in Llandrindod, but we've got other records relating to Powys in Herefordshire Record Office, obviously Powys Record Office, the National Library of Wales, and also you'll find some in the Shropshire Record Office. There are numerous local history societies, especially now in the last few years. There have been many, many more parishes setting up their own local history societies. So it's always worth checking to see, is there a local history society also? There's also the Radnorshire Society, who obviously covers Radnorshire, Powys Fan Club, and the Brecknock Societies. All these have been mentioned before. So these maps are available for anybody. These are just copies of them off the website, but they are available to members inside our members area and on request for non-members. And it's also part of the pack, so you'll get the pack afterwards. Okay, so originally all the 3 groups had their own libraries. They were all housing their own librarians, back bedrooms mostly, and individual dedicated librarians. So, but obviously over a period of years since 1980, people get older and they just cannot continue. So this has led us to go digital within these libraries. These libraries include many family trees donated by members of the society. And also when people were joining in the early 80s, they were all writing out these trees. So we've got copies of all the trees of people, members who were originally members from 1980. A lot of the early ones are not yet on the website because obviously we have to confirm that we're okay to put them up there. But there's lots of other newspaper cuttings, chapel burial baptism registers, school histories, and much, much more. But what we're trying to do now, because a lot of everything else, when COVID came along, we couldn't have meetings. So then we started doing Zoom meetings, but then we found that the dynamic of of the meetings was changing, because mostly it was overseas members who were logging in to the Zoom meetings, and you wouldn't see the local people. So then I started going around the groups doing a similar talk to this, to try and encourage them to log on to the onto the site, get access to the members area, where all this massive information that was in the 3 libraries is located. We still have some people who are frightened of breaking it, but obviously we're still working on those people. Okay, so like I said, since COVID and up to January 2025, we have held monthly Zoom meetings, which means obviously we can get speakers from anywhere, yeah, from all over the world. So it's a much more benefit to the membership to have a wider variety of speakers, but it just means that the local people still not engaging quite as much as I would like. So our next Zoom, which will be on in September, will be like transported to Tasmania from Kelly, Cornwall. So we will have restarted our Zooms by then. So what we found is that in the middle of the year, most of our membership come from farming stock. They haven't got time to come to meetings, or they forget about it, or are out getting in the hay harvest, whatever, during the summer. So we decided what we would do is we would, once the group meetings started back again, which they have now, we would cut back on the number of Zoom meetings. We would do Zoom in the dark evenings, and we would do local meetings in the summer evenings, which obviously we can work around where people's availability is. So as with all societies, there are always projects going on. We are transcribing burial register for Identify My Past. Currently, we have 73,000 entries published by this method. And of course, we're always looking for volunteers. And we're also transcribing monument inscriptions with the 3 pre-1974 counties, Breconshire, Montgomery, and Radnorshire. Radnorshire is completely done. My wife and I have been to every single Radnorshire burial ground, and we recorded every stone that we could find. We're halfway through Breconshire, and Montgomeryshire is not quite so well documented, because as I said in the beginning, there are 3 societies covering this society, and Montgomeryshire Genealogical Society have done all of the gravestone recording. So there's no point us going over top what they've already done. So if we get an article or somebody a question about Montgomeryshire we can't answer, well, we would gladly forward it to the Montgomery Genealogical Society. So because obviously we don't know everything. We haven't got records for everything, but they've got some records as well. So hopefully between us, we can answer the questions. So as an example of the interest and value of these projects, this is a gravestone that we found in Brecon Cemetery. A headstone, sandstone, you can see all the decoration, you can see what we've recorded about it. So we said, well, what's so interesting? Well, this guy was working for Boswell and Woolmore's menagerie, as what we would describe as a traveling circus now. It doesn't state how or when they were traveling, how they were getting about. Presumably, they were traveling by being pulled by horse. So the newspaper, however, recorded everything. It describes that a lion that died in the menagerie died suddenly, and Charles Darge, who worked for this person, was instructed to cut the lion up to feed to the other animals. However, during this process, he cut his thumb, was taken to Brecon Hospital, but died of blood poisoning. So we did a little bit of research on it. They came from London, and but this is one of the fascinations of, I believe anyway, the fascination of doing monument and inscription recording. What would be better than sitting in a lovely quiet churchyard, recording information and finding lovely stories like this? So we're still going out every Tuesday recording. Hopefully we'll eventually get to the whole county by time I'm a member of the said churchyard. So this is one of the sort of, and we focus this on, and we advertise this on the thing on our in our chronicle. So currently we're recording the memorials inside the Brecon Cathedral. They were recorded in the 80s, I think it was, or the 80s or early 90s, by someone called Gareth Jones, who was a member of our society. He lived in Stafford, and he was very interested in South Breconshire memorials. And he would come on holiday, bring his wife, bring a couple of friends, and they would go recording gravestones. And one of them was the Brecon Cathedral. He only did the outside because he went inside and he saw things like you can see on the screen there. Inside the cathedral are at least 400 memorials, none of which have been recorded before, none of which are known about by the cathedral. So they're very interested and very accommodating and say, yeah, come on in, yeah, come on. So we think that there are at least 400 memorials to do inside. Some of them are under the floor, because we were talking to one of the people in the cathedral, and they said, oh yeah, they modernized it. They modernized the cathedral, whatever that means, and used the gravestones outside that were falling over and used them as the floor. So some were, however, placed upwards, which means you can record them, and some are as early as the 17th century. What would God knows what all the other ones are like, but they're all good quality stone, but most of them are face down. Okay, so on to talking about the Chronicle, the Powys Chronicle. We publish this 3 times a year. And we won the Elizabeth Simpson Award in 1996. That just happened to be the first duty as the new chairman of the Powys FHS in 1996 was to accept the award. And as you can see later on, we consistently were placed in the award for the Elizabeth Simpson. As far as I know, that's not awarded anymore, which is a great shame, because but times move on, I suppose. So the Chronicle is now still published as a A5 booklet, published 3 times a year, and we exchange it with 50 or 60 other societies, and that is all available also as a PDF. So we exchange it with other societies as a PDF, and that obviously any society that is interested in exchange with us, we're happy to do that, because obviously, there's no real cost to that now. It's sent out by email, a link to it, they download it, put it on their own society website. So if it's something that you're interested, that your local society doesn't exchange with us and you think it might be advantageous, let me know. Okay, so coming to the end a bit now. So what also I just wanted to focus on the Association of Family Societies of Wales, which, as I said earlier, is a sort of like Federation for Wales, formed in 1981, and obviously to promote the study of family history and coordinate support activities of family history societies in Wales. So we meet twice a year, and it's basically sort of get together. How do we do things? Right, okay, that's a good idea. Why can't we do that? And obviously, and we still have list of researchers who have, as you can see on the link, there's a list who have indicated they're willing to do work on behalf of people that are onto the website. And as you can see, as their website, so do visit afterwards. There is an interesting thing on there of where we've tried to list every parish in the whole of Wales. So if you've got a parish you think's in Wales, but you haven't got the foggiest idea where it is, look on their website. It's got a list of parishes and it'll tell you. And if it's somewhere like Llandilo Fawr, it will tell you that there's one in Cardiganshire and there's one in Radnorshire. So it's a good finding aid to start off if you get a link into Wales, but you just don't know where to start. Okay, I think that's me finished, I think, unless there's any questions, or I think we're going to do that at the end.
Yeah, I think we'll do questions at the end. There was nothing specific to you that came up in the chat, but let me just pause the recording. Thank you, Phil. That was brilliant. Our next speaker this afternoon is Helen Fulton, who is a trustee of the Historic Towns Trust. Thank you, Helen.
Pananda, good afternoon, everyone. It's a great pleasure to be speaking to you this afternoon. I'm delighted to give you this brief introduction about the work of the Historic Towns Trust, of which I'm one of the trustees. And then I'll say a few words about a new historical map of Brecon and Hay-on-Wye, which is currently in preparation. The Historic Towns Trust is a charity whose mission is to produce historical maps and atlases of Britain's towns and cities. And it's worth noting at this point that urban maps, like street maps, are a relatively modern phenomenon. There's not much before about the 18th century in terms of town maps. So what the Historic Towns Trust is trying to do is retrieve the older streetscapes of some of our towns and cities. So the atlases are produced as hardback books with detailed sets of street maps of the different towns, like the ones shown here, Winchester, Windsor and Eton, and York. They also produce maps, which are produced in a very high quality printed format, similar to an Ordnance Survey map. They are fold-out maps. So you open up the cover and fold out a sort of A3 sized sheet. And these maps are sold through bookshops and also via the Trust's website. So the maps themselves, the street maps, are printed on one side, and on the other side is a gazetteer noting places of interest, including streets, buildings, major houses and institutions, parks or other major landmarks. And we also include as many images as possible to make the maps look appealing and help readers to understand why the city looks the way it does. This is just a snapshot of the gazetteer on the back of the Swansea map, which is one of the ones I worked on. So by producing these maps and atlases, the Trust wants to encourage an understanding of the richness of the urban past and what's left of our urban heritage and its history. So the maps are used by members of the public, museums, tour guides, and they're also used in schools to help children understand the history of where they live. And of course, in an age of Google Maps and Apple Maps, digital maps on our phones, these printed maps offer a new way of experiencing the towns and cities where we live or visit, and they help to train young people how to navigate using a whole map rather than what they can see on the little screen on a phone, which shows only a few streets at a time, and you can't see the complete context of what you're looking at. Each of these maps and atlases is produced with the help of a local committee of citizens, many of whom are local historians and have specialist knowledge of their town. So virtually all the information contained in the gazetteer on the back of each map, like here, has been researched and written by the community team, drawing on published histories, archives, or simply their own local knowledge. The maps themselves are based on the historical maps produced by the Ordnance Survey, which Charlotte has already mentioned. Many of these date back to the early 19th century. This one is a section from the Swansea Ordnance Survey map of 1910, and that was used as the basis for the Swansea street map. So the Ordnance Survey maps are very detailed. They show all the streets and many of the landmarks, like this close-up section of Swansea showing Orchard Street on the left and College Street on towards the bottom. And these maps are then digitized. So here is the same section of the map. There's Orchard Street on the left, College Street at the bottom. The Ordnance Survey map is digitized by a professional cartographer using colours to indicate different information about the age of the buildings or the streets, all kinds of different information which is presented in a key to each map. Each local committee helps with the fundraising because each map or atlas has to pay its own way, and the maps cost around £20,000 to prepare, and the atlases are even more expensive, around £30,000 to £35,000, which includes the cost of the professional cartographer and the cost of publishing the maps and the atlases, which are like hard copy books, so they're expensive to produce. The money is raised from the local community, from various stakeholders like local businesses, from the public sector, the general public, and all the money raised from the sale of the maps and atlases goes back into the pot to fund future maps. And there's information on the Trust's website about how you can donate to any of the maps in progress at the moment. So I've been involved in making two of the maps so far, one of Bristol and one of Swansea. So for the Bristol map, we chose to focus on medieval Bristol using a description of the city published by a man called William Worcester in 1480. So we have a 1480 description of what the city looked like then, and we based our medieval map of Bristol on the account by William Worcester. So that's the cover of the map on the left, and on the right is a sort of pen-drawn sketch of old Bristol drawn by Robert Rickard, who was one of the early mayors of Bristol in the 15th century. For the Swansea map, we focused on two key time periods, the medieval town in the 13th and 14th centuries, and then the big changes to the town that occurred during its industrial heyday in the late 18th and 19th centuries. And the Swansea map features an inset map, that's the one on the right, showing the industrial valley going up the river from the city, showing all the various mines and copper works and other industrial factories that made Swansea the richest city in Wales by the end of the 19th century. And indeed, Swansea then claimed to be the capital of Wales. The Swansea map was the first map of a Welsh town that the Trust had commissioned, and one result of this was a major policy decision by the Trust to produce any maps of Welsh towns in Welsh as well as English. So we actually produced two identical maps of Swansea, one in Welsh and one in English, and this is the first map of a Welsh town in the Welsh language ever to have been produced. So it's quite a milestone in the history of cartography in Britain. I'm now involved in a third map, which will show the historic towns of Brecon and Hay-on-Wye. We decided to display both towns together within the same map, as both towns are relatively small and have similar histories as Norman settlements in the March of Wales. To show the historical development of both towns, we're focusing on features from the medieval period right through to the 18th and 19th centuries, as both towns have some very fine architectural features from all these periods. And of course, as both towns are in Wales, we will be producing the map in both languages in line with the Trust's policy, which means that all the street names and landmarks on the front of the map have to be translated into Welsh, and all the information in the gazetteer on the back of the map will also have to be prepared in Welsh as well as English. The cost of a bilingual map is significantly greater than a standard English monolingual map because of the cost of translation and the extra time required by the cartographer to lay out the map in both languages. So we're currently fundraising for the £35,000 that we need to produce the 2 maps. We've had some substantial donations already, and we're continuing to approach sponsors. So if anyone wants to help, please do visit the Historic Towns Trust website, and you can donate through the online shop. You can make a general donation, or you can specify which map you want to support. To make the map of Brecon and Hay, I'm working with a small team of local historians from both towns who are very familiar with Powys history and these towns in particular. One of our major sources is, of course, the 2-volume history of the county of Brecknock, which Charlotte already mentioned. This history was written by Theophilus Jones, and he wrote it between 1805 and 1809. Jones himself was born in Brecon in 1759 and was educated at Christ College School in Brecon, which is still there. He trained as a lawyer, but his real interest was local history, and he published the first volume in 1805 and the second in 1809. He intended to follow this with a history of Radnorshire, but he died in January 1812 and was buried at Llangamach. He was a Welsh speaker and was very interested in the heritage of Welsh literature. He even owned at one time the Book of Aneurin, one of the most valuable early Welsh manuscripts dated to about 1275. So many of the modern histories of Brecon and Hay are derived ultimately from Jones's work, so he's the starting point for our research. We're also using the resources of Powys archives, which Charlotte has already described to you, and which, as you can see, are numerous and multiple. The collection has material dating from the 14th century, as Charlotte mentioned, the 1318 land grant, but it also includes things like the borough records dating from 1582, so these are of particular interest, and also land grants from the 16th century showing some of the interactions between Welsh and English landowners in and around Brecon and Hay. We're also using Covline, the amazing sort of online index of all the landmarks and buildings in Wales. We're drawing on parish records, and we're also using the resources of the Royal Commission on Ancient and Historical Monuments of Wales. And the Royal Commission is currently mapping all the parishes of Wales, so they have a big mapping project going on themselves. So there's a lot of overlap between the 2 projects. As well as archival research, we're very reliant on local history groups who've already brought a lot of information together to create narratives about their local area. In Brecon, the community group called Brecon Story have created a walk around the town based on images from Google Earth. So each image is accompanied by a panel of historical information about landmarks and locations, which you can access on your phone as you're walking around the town. So it's a good example of how to make historical research accessible for the general public. In Hay, the Hay History Group organises an annual history weekend each September, and they have published a number of books about the history of Hay, including the Historical Directory of Hay-on-Wye by Alan Nichols, which presents a survey of the town organised alphabetically, street by street, so an incredibly useful resource. And of course, the Hay Castle Trust has an extensive educational programme that focuses on the history of the castle and its place in the town from the 12th century onwards. We hope to have our map of Brecon and Hay finished by early next year. We've already made a good start on the gazetteer, and I'm looking forward to the rest of the research with my team. And the team includes representatives from the Brecknock Historical Society and the Hay Castle Trust. And you will have heard from Charlotte of some of the many resources that we have at our disposal, and we're using all and many of these to construct our history of the towns of Brecon and Hay. So in the meantime, I wish you all the best for your own research into the history of this most fascinating region of Wales, the history of Powys. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Helen, and good luck with the Brecon and Hay map. Our next speaker is Paula Alcott from A Vision of Britain Through Time.
Good afternoon, everybody. Apologies I can't be there in person today, but I'm going to give you a little introduction to using our website, A Vision of Britain Through Time, with a focus on Powys today. So our website is all about local history. It's designed to give you information about any place in Great Britain. We don't have any information about individual people, buildings, streets. It's all about places, sort of villages and upwards in size. And it's helping you to understand what the place was like in the past. It's centred around the geography, so you search by place name or postcode, and the results you get back will show you what we have in terms of old maps, descriptions from the past, and statistics. So this is the homepage of the website as it is at the moment. As you can see, there's a variety of information on there, and on the left hand side is a search box. So this search box is where we are going to type the place name or the postcode. So I've typed my place name into the search box on the home page, and it returns me this results page. The reason it brings me this page is because there's more than one place in Great Britain called Newtown, so it gives me the option to choose which one I'm most interested in. As you can see from the map on the right, there's over 20 of them, but we're actually interested in the first one, Newtown, Montgomeryshire. So having selected the place that I'm interested in from the results page, it takes me to the place homepage for Newtown, Montgomeryshire. If there was only a single place name in the UK that matched the name I typed in, it would take me straight to this page and skip the results page. So this place homepage is designed to work in two ways. Firstly, it's a stepping stone to further information within the site, but also it's designed to give you information immediately about the place that you're interested in. We have on there an excerpt from a historical map in the middle. On the right, there is an outline map of the UK with a place locator indicating where the place is, and underneath we have the text from a historical gazetteer. Now, that's only a small part of it, so I can click on Show Further Information and it will expand to show me the full text for this entry. And here we can see the expanded text for Newtown from Bartholomew's Gazetteer from the late 19th century. Once we've read that, we might be interested to see what other historical writing there is. So on the left in the menu bar, you'll see there's a historical places and writing link, and we can click on that to reach further information. So on this historical writing page, we can see other writing relating to Newtown. At the top, we have a second entry from a different historical gazetteer, the Imperial Gazetteer about Newtown. In the middle, we have an entry that relates to a township that was connected to Newtown. And at the bottom, we have a selection of writings by travellers who in the past wrote about their experiences journeying around the UK. So to take one of those travellers as an example, I'm going to choose Robert Gamage at the top, who was a mid-19th century Chartist lecturer. And if we take the first entry and click on that, it takes us directly into where he was writing about Newtown, the first reference that he makes to it. And so I can read about what he says about Newtown there. On the right, you'll see there's a dot map which shows the places he refers to in this particular section of his text. And the same is true for all of the other writers. So once you've explored the historical writing, you might say, well, what else is there available that I can look at? So if we go back to the place page, we're next going to look at the historical maps. If you click on the excerpt in the middle of the map, it will take you to our map library. And here we've arrived at the map library. In the map window, you'll see that Newtown is in the middle, and that's because it's centered on the place name that you have indicated you're interested in. You can choose which map series you're interested in using the tabs along the top, and beneath it there's a list of all the individual map sheets that we hold. Now, as you pan and zoom the map window on the right, that list underneath will update, so it'll always show you the maps we have that are closest to the view you have in the map window. The list at the bottom, where you look at individual map sheets, you can click on this on the thumbnail images and they will expand. So the expanded map sheet will open in a new tab. This is just one example. It will open as the full view, which you can pan and zoom, and it means that you can look at individual places as we've highlighted here. You can look at the key information if there is one, publication information, or anything that happens to be written in the margins of the sheet. Going back to the place page again, we also have this option to look at related websites. So this takes us to a page which lists a series of external websites. Each of these websites is national in scope, and by clicking on the links in this page, it will take you directly to the page on their website that is about Newtown, Montgomeryshire. The second tab with locations nearby works in the same way, it's just slightly less geographically focused. So finally, I'm going to talk about how you get to the statistics from the place page. So we do this in two ways. The first way you enter by clicking on Newtown through time at the bottom of the page. This takes us into a page which is about the modern unitary authority or district that covers the area of Newtown as it currently stands. So that is the Powys district. I should say that at the moment the website only goes up to 2011. Any changes for the 2021 census are not included in the website at this time. We are in the process of adding them and they should be live soon. So once we get to this page, you can see there's a series of different themes that you can explore to find out about the statistical background for Powys. So for this example, I'm going to look at the population theme. So I've clicked on that icon and I reach this page. At the top, there are a series of rate graphs that show the change in population compared to national figures. And at the bottom, we have a series of data sets that you can also select. Today, I'm going to choose total population as my example. Having clicked on the total population link at the bottom of the previous page, I arrive at this page, which shows me the total population in graph form for Powys from 1801 through to 2011. We have the graph view. We can also look at the tab which shows a table view with the numbers in it and the tab with the source information in it. Of course, Powys did not exist in 1801. It's a much more recent creation. But what we've done is we've reorganised the historical statistics to cover the area through time, to give you a sense of how it's changed. These are not exact numbers, they're best estimates. However, you might want to look at the original historical numbers that were collected at the time. And this is the other way we hold statistics. So from the place page, you can click on Units and Statistics in the left-hand sidebar. And this takes you to a grid of information. Across the top, you can see the themes that we've identified before. And on the left-hand side of the grid, going down, is all the different administrative units that have existed which had Newtown in the name for this place. Now, if I click on one of the green ticks, it will take me to the statistics page for that unit, for that theme. So by clicking on the green tick in the top left corner of the grid, I go to the theme page for population for the registration district. And from there I can click through to see the total population. Apologies for any mispronunciation of the Welsh place names, but in this case it's Newtown and Llanidloes registration district. As you can see, the population graph is given for the mid to late 19th century, and there's a table of numbers as well. The registration district covers the towns and their surrounding rural area, and that's what the map indicates. It's not very clear, but the red line shows you the boundaries of that area. In the late 19th century and into the 20th century, a new system of civil administration was introduced with the local government districts, which divided up the rural and the urban areas into separate administrative units. So firstly, we have the rural district, which shows the total population. And if you look on the map, you can see that the two larger settlements both are holes on the map, and the red area goes around them. So alongside the rural district, we also have the Newtown and Llanchwchean urban district, which you can see is much smaller, and there we have the total population. But as you can see from this short demonstration, the changing boundaries of the historical units make it very complicated, which is why we offer you a simplified view of Newtown through time. And that's the end of my presentation for today. Thank you for listening.
Thank you very much, Paula.